Shedwars. Welcome back, and we're talking about seeds again. That's the topic for Shed Wars this year. Saving your own seed is important for a number of reasons. And it's not prepping for an apocalypse thing, it's just standard practice actually. I bought 2,000 onion seeds one time. Not a one would sprout. You get into that. If you're carrying a backup for all the seeds that you usually grow, then you can play around with the different varieties that people are offering, but yet you know that you've got your own that will grow. The other thing is, if you find genetics that works well in your situation, you'd be wise to hang on to those genetics. And that's the biggest reason why we come into saving seeds. And I've got to show you how things are processing here in the garden before it gets too far. You see, spinach is a relative of beet, and so when it goes all the way to seed, it will look a lot like the beet seeds. But spinach isn't annual, so they'll bolt in the 1 year. As will arugula, and my radish seems to bolt. I think radish is supposed to be a biennial, but mine just bolts. But this is arugula, very good even when it's bolted. And it's flowers, so this is what it looks like when it's gone to flower. And then for those biennials, I'm coming in on the wrong side of this. So this plant here, this is the carrots. You see, they're not open yet. The beets are still small. I expected the beets actually to be growing much more than that by now, but anyway, they're just the plants yet. This is a parsnip plant, so this is about what the it will look like. We have 4 or 5 different kinds of bees around here. But you see, you have an ant here doing pollinating. Another one over there. Parsnip, there is a type of silkworm. That's a moth, as far as I know. The clear worms are moths and the fuzzy worms are butterflies, if I understand correctly. They come out, what I have found is that the very early blossoms on parsnip plants, they don't touch, and the very late ones. So if you could stagger the planting, or plant a couple of parsnip early and then plant a couple late, then you'd be more likely to not get, because 1 year those worms, they destroyed every seed of the parsnip plant I had. But like I said, if you stagger them, then you'll get some that are outside of the life cycle of those worms. Anyway, back to what we're doing here. We saved, with biennials, we save the best of our crop and store that, and then we take it out the next year and plant it, as we showed in an earlier video, and here it is growing along. So a few nice things about the volunteer plants, and I want to point something out here, but we see the lettuce there, they're starting to elongate, getting tall. So they're going to bolt now. I have to quickly take up the ones that I want to harvest, because when they won't be very long now, and lettuce gets bitter. Arugula, it's a little bit bitter, but I like it. Spinach, that don't get bitter at all. Anyway, what I want to show you is that It is commonly said that the volunteers are the ones that grow the best, but that's not actually true. Now the dill that's up in the where the other herbs are, they're growing much better than the ones here, but that's kind of comparing apples and oranges, because the conditions here is quite a lot different than what it is up here, up there. But we can see these two really tall ones here. They're growing very well for a volunteer. But if we look down here, you see? Little tiny plant. Now, seeds, they'll stay in the soil, and they'll wait until just the right conditions. If I'm going to save seed for my conditions, this tall plant here, that germinated back in the spring. So it'll germinate according to my spring conditions. All these little tiny ones down here, they had to wait until the middle of July. It's no good for me to try to grow that. It's not going to come to anything. I mean, there's a little bit here now, so I won't let that go to flower and seed. I'll harvest that for just the dill weed. And like I said, the tall ones, then that's something that I can, the best growing, and because we have a short growing season, the earliest to germinate. Let that go to seed, and collect seed from that, and let the seed that falls be next year's volunteers. Don't have myself in the right order now. I was walking around the garden earlier and saying, yeah, I got to put that on the Shed Wars video. Got to put that on the Shed Wars video. There's a nice big plant for a parsnip plant, hey? This is another type of bee here. So now, see all the flowers, they've been pollinated, and this is a fruit that grows on, but there's only a single seed in each fruit for parsnip, and when it's fully mature, the fruit will turn brown and dry, and then the little stems that they're connected to, they'll dry back, then this stem will dry back, and then this stem will start to dry back. You have to wait until this stem is drying back before you harvest these fruits, which will then be just your parsnip seed, because there's only one seed per fruit. The third reason for saving seed, if you live out in the middle of nowhere, like I do, and there's no farm fields around, chances are what you have to pull from, the seeds, when you look at a seed catalog, those seeds are not developed for your area. Now, as we've been saying, we've had quite a few volunteer tomato plants growing. I would say that these are furthest north. But I'm going to have fruit from a volunteer tomato plant. I've got, this one is growing nicely. I mean, it's July the 21st. I'm going to have, if this is furthest north, I'm going to have a lot of fruit. I've got 1, 2, 3 nice plants growing here. I definitely have to save seed from this for next year. I'll save a lot of seed, and I'll probably try to grow some as transplants, but also put some seed out as soon as the ground is workable and see what happens. And in that way, now I'm already well on the way to developing a tomato plant that will grow good in my area. This year, well, I mean, all years are warmer as they go, and it's above the 30-year average, but it's not an exceptionally warm year. So that one will probably grow even in an average year. So if we get a cold year now, I'd have to do transplants again, but in an average year, I would probably, if I save seed from this, then it would probably grow here. Furthest north it come from, I'm assuming, but we will quickly change that genetics as we go season after season, resetting those seeds. I think that was all I needed to update you on with respect to the our seed growing process this year. I think this is going to be a shorter video too. Maybe I'm getting good at that. So I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.